All right, in the last video, I did a quick video around understanding where we are in election cycles, the voter ID versus get out the vote mode. Now that we understand those, the goals behind those, now I want to talk about tactics and which tactics align best to each of those cycles and what you do in them. So the first tactic I'm going to talk about is the big one, is canvassing, right? And no matter what way you look at it, really almost no matter what cycle, part of the cycle you're in and during a campaign, canvassing, door-to-door canvassing is the most effective, powerful tool you can use. There are lots of studies on that, and it makes sense, right? When you are face to face with someone having a conversation, you get to ask questions. You know, what's the big issue for you? I come to a door, I see you know, a woman in her 30s answers, and I can see either toys or kids behind her, and I can look, she's a mom and she's got kids, and I can say, hey, I support this candidate because of the work I do in gun violence prevention and keeping our children safe and so forth, and I can reach that bond. But you also can ask, what matters to you? So canvassing gives you an opportunity at whatever part of the cycle you're in that you can't get with any other communication method. Now, canvassing will shift through the cycle, right? Early on, 6 to 12 months out, campaigns often don't know who their supporters are. They know some, but they don't know who it is. So the whole idea is send people out to knock on doors and understand, you know, is this person a strong supporter of that candidate? Are they leaning toward that candidate? Do they totally oppose that candidate? And so forth. And that happens early. Again, this year's a little funny because of the switch over at the top of the ticket, but for the most part, you know, 6 months out, you should have a pretty good sense of kind of where those, you know, where voters stand, you know, specific voters on whether they support your candidate. Now, there is a specific part of canvassing where you're doing kind of persuasion, and it's often called deep canvassing, right? Where they will intentionally send you to a, let's say, like I'm supporting a Democrat, they may send you to a red Republican houses to try to persuade people to why they should do this. They, for the most part, you're not going to randomly end up at some MAGA house, right? That deep canvassing is something where they train people specifically for that task. They don't randomly say, hey, new volunteer, go knock on doors and call on, you know, people who oppose you. But even with deep canvassing, you're probably not going to MAGA houses. But anyway, that would be early in the campaign, and it would only be if you've gone through the training to do deep canvassing. For the most part, you are calling on voters who are likely to support your candidate, and you're out there, again, early in the campaign, you're doing the voter ID. Hey, can I count on your support for Kamala Harris? And you know, throughout the ticket, and you'll figure out, are they strong support, lean support, and so forth. Now, as we get to where we are now, we've really shifted into get out the vote mode. And we should, if the campaign has done their work, they should already know, have done the voter ID, and they know each house kind of who are the voters they can count on. And what you're doing at this point is you're knocking on that door to find out, you know, hey, again, in New York, we haven't started early voting yet, so I may have that conversation and say, hey, do you have your plan to vote? Are you voting early? Here's where it starts. Make sure you have that info ready, right? So you say, hey, you know, you're polling. It's at the, you know, the Main Street school around the corner. You know, and it starts on this date, and it goes, you know, it's every day until through the Sunday before election day and so forth. Give them that information, lock it down with them. You're going to vote there. Hey, you know, and do you know if your spouse is coming with you, or your sister, or whoever it might be? So that's really the, you know, the get out the vote mode, is trying to make sure people have their plans. Obviously, once voting has begun, that shifts even further. Campaigns, by the way, when they cut their turfs for you, during election season, once voting starts, they should be automatically excluding anyone who has already voted. They don't know who they voted for, but they know if they voted. So in general, you can always tell people, like, oh okay, you know, early voting started last week, you know, when do you think you're going to vote? You're probably not talking to people who've already voted, although occasionally that happens. But those, you know, so canvassing, again, the most impactful thing you can do, and you know, it will shift through the cycle, and we are in the fun part right now of get out the vote.